Hi, and welcome to Georgina Blooms. I'm Kathy Bruce, your host, and today we're going to talk about how to keep you and your garden happy through the summer. Whether it's a heat wave or vacation, you won't want to miss this. Welcome back, and joining me is fabulous Tom Bruce.
Hi.
And the first thing I want to talk to you about the summer and the way our summers have gone. We've had some pretty super rainy or super drought or windy and drought. The first thing you need to do is to take care of yourself, because if you don't do that, you can't look after your garden. So keep yourself, use sunscreen, work at the better times of day. That's morning and evening when it's cooler and not as taxing on you. When you're not working in the garden, you can plan on what you want to do. Tom's got a UV inhibitor shirt on. That kind of clothing works really well. And keep yourself hydrated. So drink a lot of water, because alcohol is not a hydration thing.
A dehydrator.
Excuse me. And anything else? Oh, a hat. Wear a hat. There are some pretty cool garden hats. And
especially when there's no insulation on top.
So take care of yourself first. And one of the other things I find is, as you get older and you spend time in the same position, weeding or cutting, or just change it up every now and then. If you've been on your knees and you're weeding and your bucket is, even if it's not full, use that opportunity to get up, move around, empty your bucket, and then come back, or just do a different chore. But as I get older, the longer I stay in the same position, the harder it is to move.
To get out of that position.
Yeah, and I don't think you have to be old for that. You should just change up your what you're doing in the garden. There's always other stuff. If you're kneeling, there's other stuff you can do standing or walking around. Anyway, enough of you. Be sure to look after yourself. Compost is what I want to talk about. A lot of people don't have a compost pile because they say it gets stinky. Ours doesn't, because Tom looks after it.
Yeah, it's really important to look after your compost. It's not something that you can kind of just throw stuff on and then hope that it's going to work. The compost is going to work. So one of the big things that people forget about is there's several things. Of course, you need your brown and green materials in your compost, but there's air. Absolutely got to have air, and you got to have some moisture. Moisture, look at it as like a damp rag, is kind of the moisture level you're looking for.
Right.
But air is really important to feed the bacteria. You want, not to get too scientific, but you want...
But you're going to anyway.
Aerobic digestion of your... And that means that there's air in it. You don't want anaerobic. As soon as you get anaerobic digestion,
here we go.
Sorry, it gets stinky.
Yeah.
You know, you produce sulfur compounds, which really stinky. So one of the best things to do is turn your compost. So every 3 weeks or so, I get in there with a fork and turn it.
Right.
And this helps aerate it. Yeah. That helps get the air into the pile, and that's a very important ingredient in your compost.
Right. The other thing we've had in our compost, a couple years ago we bought some red wigglers, which are little worms. The earthworms come up from the bottom. The red wigglers you throw on the top, and they demolish compost and turn it into black gold like real quick. Because we haven't had as cold a winter, they have survived.
Oh yeah, there's huge clumps of the red wigglers in the compost pile there this year. And so I'm very careful when I go to look after my compost, like when I'm screening it, which is I use it just because it makes it go into the garden. Looks, you don't have sticks and big plants.
Right.
So plant material. So yeah, so there's red wigglers. I make sure that they get into the most active, not active, but my current pile that I'm working on.
So yeah.
And,
so the pile you're working on right now
yeah.
is this one. I just threw some stuff on top.
Right, yeah.
And we've got a thermometer in there as well.
Yeah, it's cooled a little bit right now. It was up to 100. Right now it's sitting at about 90, but it is in the green zone. And so that means that it's active.
Right,
So, and,
right.
Which is good. So there's some bacterial action going on. There's also all of the other macro digesters like, like the worms and
Right.
like sow bugs and things like that that break it down.
If you're going to have a compost, every 3 weeks if you turn it and add water, and green material is like grass clippings and green weeds and stuff like that, and kitchen scraps. So it's not a big to-do to really look after this. You don't spend hours and hours here.
And I like the open piles. It's just one, it's easier to get at, to turn it. Whereas these black composters that are closed and you just kind of keep throwing stuff on top, it's very hard to aerate it unless you take it off and then rebuild the pile. So that's what I like about it.
So over here, I've got two one is a compost, sheep and cow manure compost. If you don't have a compost pile, or if your pile doesn't create enough, you can pop this. We have both. I use the animal manure for my perennials, and chicken manure. Chicken manure is great for tomatoes and peppers and eggplants and strawberries and apple trees. You do not want to use chicken manure on blueberries or azaleas and rhododendron. And Tom found the red wigglers. So they're just happy little campers.
One there, and I'm sure there's like a whole clump of them in there, and they're disappearing.
And they make the compost disappear.
Oh, yeah.
Stay tuned, we've got more. Welcome back. And I just wanted to mention one more really cool thing about chicken poo is on the suggestion from Ida and Bonnie at Canadian Tire, Ida had put it in her planters. And when you initially set up your planters, the squirrels seemed to really enjoy it. So I sprinkled the chicken poo, which is little pellets, all around my planters, every one of them. And because they'd been dug out and plants were on the ground with their roots and everything, you know what it's like. I don't have squirrels in my planters. Yes, this will disintegrate over time, but as it disintegrates, your plants get fuller and your exposed soil is not as much. So chicken poo in your planters is a great deterrent. I also, in the beginning, I use hot pepper flakes, ground up dried hot peppers. It works to a fashion, but I think they lose their hot pepperness, and this worked really well. So that's a nice tip. Rain barrels. If you don't have one, get one. Get 1, 2, 3, or 4. You can connect them to each other. Most rain barrels, we have 4 altogether. 2 are connected on the side of the house. And an inch of rain on a 1,000 square foot roof will produce 623 gallons of water, free water. So we haven't used a hose at all. It's all been rainwater because we've fortunately had enough rain. But just before it's going to rain, and if our rain barrels are not full, or our rain barrels are full, or whatever it is, anyway, Tom fills up all of our watering cans with water so that whatever rain falls has enough room in the rain barrel. Another tip from Ida at Canadian Tire was that if you want your rain barrel to look pretty for the day or longer, you can float pond plants on top of your rain barrel. And she was saying that I guess her rain barrel doesn't have one of these, but it's so thick that mosquitoes cannot get in there. Excuse me. Right now, we just use the screen, but if you were having company and wanted your rain barrel to look a little prettier, that's a great way to do it. So that's rain barrels. Have one, saves money when there are restrictions on. You can just, this is great for potted plants and your vegetable garden. So I strongly urge everyone to at least have one. I'm going to meet you over at my gazebo for more. So we're in my gazebo, and I'm going to tell you how I look after my plants when we go on vacation. These are little pots from the dollar store, not very expensive, $2 tops, and I fill them with water from the rain barrel. And this is especially great if it's been windy and hasn't rained, or this is usually how I water my hanging plants. Take your hanging plant, usually in the morning, and pop it in the water. And this is a fuchsia needs shade. So it's done really, really well, stayed well hydrated. And especially hanging plants, if it's windy, they are going to dry out really, really quick. On a windy day, I just leave them in here. And why hang them up when I'm going to have to do this again? If it's a hot, dry spell, it doesn't matter if your plant is for the shade or not. Gather some of your other plants that are sun-loving and do the same thing with them. And this saves them from becoming just wilty and awful. This keeps them happy. And even if you've got sun-loving plants, even to do this for the whole day and pull them out in the evening, they appreciate it by sharing their blooms a lot more with you. So I've got enough of these little tubs for pretty well every plant, every planter, certainly for all my hanging plants, because they suffer the most. They have no saucer underneath, and that's the other thing. All my other planters have a saucer that captures the water. So even if it is slightly windy, they're going to get a little more. I just make sure that saucer has water and that they're watered well. Hanging plants, when you water them, they tend to have a tunnel. You can pour water on the top and it just funnels right out the bottom. That's not what you want. You want it to be heavy. You want the whole thing to be wet. So that idea sees me through heavy duty drought times in the summer. Now vacation, I'm very lucky to have a Susie living next door because she comes over and looks after my plants. But if you don't have a Susie next door, there are a few ways you can do this. This is a great way to do it. Gather all your pots and put them in one place, which is what I will do. I'll get them from the deck, I'll get them from the front, under the stairs. I will get all my pots together and have them here so that Susie has very little movement for watering plants. There's enough to do watering the vegetable garden and my window boxes that I can't move. But what I can do is make it easy for her. And having everything in one spot and load up have them well watered before you go on vacation. You have to have them well watered. Now there are a couple of other ways instead of doing it that way. Is an empty wine bottle filled with water. The lid has holes poked in it, and you'll see the water does come out. It will slowly drip out. You can pop this down into the soil. I would make a proper hole. And I would put it down by about 2 or 3 inches. As the soil dries, the water will be released. And you can use a wine bottle. Yeah, I do have empty wine bottles. Or you can use an empty pop bottle. If you use a large jug, you can also do this in your vegetable garden. There are holes in the top of this that I can turn upside down into a planter. Or in a vegetable garden, I would sink it up to here, put little holes off to the side and on the bottom, and put it right smack in the middle of 4 plants. And the water will just, as the soil dries, the water will come out of the bottle. And that'll keep them going for a few days. But having a Susie is probably the best part of having a garden. And we both look after each other's gardens when we're away. So don't, or get a house sitter, or invest in an irrigation system, which, is a little pricey. This is dollar store cheap. Anyway, stay tuned. I've got a little more for you. Welcome back. And going through the summer in your garden is you do the regular deadheading, which is snipping off spent blooms of your plants, of your flowers, so that they keep producing more flowers. A plant's reason for living is to produce seed, to have babies. If you cut that off before it produces seed, it gets stubborn and wants to produce more flowers to produce seed. So it benefits you. So deadheading, weeding always. This garden is really easy to weed because no soil shows through, so the weeds don't have a hope in showing their little faces. But weeding is another. Now, I do not want my flower beds to get any bigger than they are because they're hard to look after. So what I do instead, as plant material encroaches into the lawn, now I just cut it back, and the lawnmower can edge nicely, and I'm not making my flower bed any bigger. This is a columbine, and you're not hurting the plant at all. Regardless of what the plant is, just snip it back, and now people see that you have a nice edge to your garden. So if a hosta leaf is hanging over like these are, I just go right in, snip it back, go right in, snip it back, and use, make sure that your snips are nice and sharp, and that way the lawn, you know, nothing is more ugly than a hosta leaf that's been attacked by a lawnmower. Not that Tom ever does that, but so I go around and I snip stuff back instead of pulling this flower bed out to accommodate my hostas. They're big enough. So I just snip the leaves back, cut back anything that's ugly or dead. Otherwise, that should take you through the summer nicely. And like I said at the beginning, do look after yourself because it can be very taxing, especially when it's humid. So we do have a new addition to our garden, and Tom and Heidi are walking through the yard over there. She's rather large. Heidi is a cross between a English Mastiff and a Bernese Mountain Dog. And she just saw the Jeremiah. So, oh, Heidi. She loves people, so the bark is, there is no bite, but she's had to learn to stay out of my flower beds, which she does, or these would be a wreck. And so I just wanted to introduce you to our latest addition. She's our daughter's dog, and our daughter can't have her for the next little bit. And she's happy to see Jeremiah for sure. Hey, Heidi. So she's a great dog. And if you see Tom and Heidi out and about, she's a little bit much for me to handle. And I keep her out of the beds as well because I'm not exactly sure what plants are poisonous should she decide to snap at them. So she's just been taught to stay out of my flower beds. But I hope you have a great summer. I hope your gardens flourish. And I hope some of the tips today help you and your plants survive. What I can say is, given the cost of water these days, and we're all trying to be eco-friendly, rain barrels are the route to go. We have had them for a long time, and it truly saves on watering, certainly watering my pots. But yeah, that's her normal pose in the middle of the road on a hot day. So say hi to them if you see them out and about walking. And the other thing is Tom always takes water for Heidi if he's not walking along the lake for her to have a drink. Your pets also need to be hydrated and have a shady place to be in. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks Tom and Heidi. And thank you. Have a great summer. We'll see you as well sometime in the summer, but take care of yourself. Bye for now.